Greetings, Tubineros. Anyone familiar with modern Western political rhetoric has heard the term democratization. It's right up there with civil society as a term of virtue that, we're told, embodies the world in which we fortunate Western citizens live. From this moral high ground, we are therefore fit, we believe, to judge the quick and the dead among the lesser breeds of mankind. But there is hope. By embracing democratization, they too can join the club of the rich and successful in that gated community called the free world. Well, Tuberistas, before we can debate the reality behind the rhetoric, we must examine the choice of terms it employs. Why does the Western propaganda establishment use the term democratization and not just use the word democracy itself? Because the word democratization describes a process, a form without specific reference to content. Under the guidelines given us by political think tanks, by human rights groups and other NGOs in service to state power, democratization embodies free speech, free association, the panoply of individual liberties with specific clauses for minority rights, the rights of women, children, gays, other vulnerable populations, all encoded in the majesty of the rule of law. Being external forms, they can be imposed externally. A conquering imperial power can justify its imposition by declaring it brings the rule of law into slavery, empowers women, offers secular rational education against drooling fanaticism, protects individual liberty of mobility, contract, and conscience. And so, aren't these good things in themselves? What's the problem here, Azov? The difference, of course, is in the supposition that the conquered do not have the right to rule themselves, that they are unworthy of democracy because they're yet tainted with the original sin of backwardness. The 1939 film biography of Benito Juarez gives the most succinct example. Here, Paul Muni, as the Mexican Republican commander Juarez, discusses the amnesty decree of the French puppet emperor Maximilian von Habsburg, with a young Porfirio Diaz, as played by John Garfield. What's wrong with accepting the emperor's terms, asks Diaz. He offers us the same things we're fighting for, the right to speak and write freely, to work and vote. The only thing that stands in the way is just a word, democracy. Juarez then asks, what does this mean, democracy? Obviously not those things you mentioned and he mentions. He gives us all this without it. The right to govern ourselves, says Diaz. Then that must be its meaning, says our Republican hero. The good emperor offers us everything we need, except the right to govern ourselves. Diaz then curses his own blindness. The insurgent terrorists of the Juarez army reject the emperor's peace offer and fight on. And thus we have the essential difference between democratization, that antiseptic and bureaucratic word form of Western colonial administrators, and the thing itself. In NATO-occupied Bosnia, for instance, democratization meant the imposition of the norms of civil society because these people were obviously incapable of developing them on their own. They were too sunk in ethnic hatred to make rational free choices in their own best interest. The fact that these people long lived side by side without killing each other, that they had a higher level of education and material life before the West encouraged the Yugoslav breakup, is beside the point. These were mere products of the communist system and did not count, in fact had to be destroyed, just like the factories, schools, farms, and towns themselves, so that the West could deliver them from the rubble of a discredited past and set them on the course of civil society. In refusing to embrace this opportunity, they would reveal their unfitness for self-rule and the necessity of an outside force to democratize them, so that they'd be ready for the real thing in the judgment of their mentors and betters. But really, is this so different from the practice of democracy closer to home? Aren't we the objects of these same democratizers? Because like the Bosnians, like the peasants of the Mexican Empire, our political and legal system has been gamed by those who consider themselves our mentors and betters, who give us everything we might need to enjoy democracy except the right to rule ourselves. Otherwise, how could the free speech rights of non-organic corporations be protected? How could the democratic state protect its right to keep the little people under surveillance, down to their very cell structure, all for their own good? Our own political parties function pretty much like the NGOs of the democratizing world. They bring together business and professional elites who focus on preserving their own freedoms to think, to choose, and act, enacted into law by persons of their own rank, imposed upon the populace for their own good. The little man who scratches his head muttering, "Hey, wait a minute, if this is for my own good, how come my asshole is so sore and bloody?" This backward ape is living proof the average man cannot grasp the concepts of civil society, the rule of law, and individual choice, and must be protected from himself. This is why socialism, for instance, must be demonized and written off the page of the rule of law. You might think, who needs legal protection of rights and property to speak without reprisal more than the poor man? But as long as he remains a poor man, he is therefore undeserving of rights he doesn't know how to use properly. He can buy a $10,000 automobile and ram it into his neighbors because his betters make billions selling it to him, but to drive the machinery of the state, even with a license to vote, it's steering his best left to his betters as a form of public transportation. So remember, the collateral damage of bomb Middle Easterners is not about empowering ragheads to think for themselves, but in enforcing democratization, which has no moral issue coming from the barrel of a gun in a Marine's full clip. Uh-oh. Thought it was about time to hear the tube line. Hello? Why, it's Dr. Moreau. I didn't know you had phone service on your island. Oh, your institute is an NGO now, and you get free satellite phone service. Anyway, what's up? Just that people like me don't appreciate how supremely difficult it is to turn beasts into men, because the damn things keep reverting despite your best efforts. Well, what to do? Just drag them back into the house of pain and whack on them and burn them some more until they can recite the rule of law from memory. Not to walk on all fours past the no trespassing sign. That is civil society. Not to be an unneeded cost to economic recovery. That is democracy.